start.
Hey guys, what's up? Shadowland's back for another video. Today I wanted to go over, I've said something in a lot of my videos recently, that Combat Arms is a dated game, that it is an old game, and although you might look at the release date and say, well yeah, no shit, it's old, it came out in 2007, 2008, it's been around for a while. What is making it old, and why do people look at this game and say, oh, that's such an old game, and it's so bullcrap, and it's terrible, and it's not as good as Call of Duty Advanced Modern Warfare 7, I don't know, it's not as good. Well, okay, why is it not as good? Nobody ever wants to elaborate on that, and that's why I'm going to do that right now. And I'm going to go over a couple of really basic things that people may say, oh, well, yeah, no shit, but it's kind of obvious, and it's a big point. So the first one of those is going to be graphics. So first of all, graphical texturing overhaul is what we really need. And now when I say texturing overhaul, I'm not talking about reskinning the game, making the maps look like they're newer, like realistic or stuff like that. That's not the way Combat Arms is meant to be played. It's the same way that Counter-Strike is. It's supposed to look a little bit cartoony, it's supposed to look kind of fake, and it's supposed to look like that. It's the way the game is meant to be. It's a very crisp game. Whenever you have realistic games like Call of Duty, you do have a little bit more of a lag in between what you're doing, where your character takes time to get running and moving again. This game is meant to be very precise. That's what this game was built to be, and that's kind of what it is. In fact, there was some controversy on that over the whole crouching thing, because now it takes time to crouch, where it's not instant anymore, and that's sort of, although it's a good thing, and I agree with the fact that it needed to be put into the game, it's stuff like that that makes the game fundamentally different. So we're going to talk about graphical overhauls first here. So when I say graphical overhauls, we're talking about slightly sharper edges, we're talking about better shadow features, because right now, if you guys find shadows in the game, you're going to look at shadows and you're not going to see like a clear texturing, like a gradient or anything. You're going to see either hard shadow lines or no hard shadow lines, and that looks really, really dated. Like that goes all the way back to like late 90s first-person shooters, Counter-Strike 1.6. That's so old. In fact, it was old when this game came out. So why do we still have that? Can't we update the graphics a little bit to accommodate more of these basic physics features? I mean, the one thing I think that they say, okay, the reason we're not going to do this yet is because the game engine itself is old. They need to update the physics engine, the graphics engine. They need to overhaul a lot of that, and I feel like that would really help. Line of Sight was starting to do that, but they went about it the wrong way, and I think the way they went about it was saying, we're going to make a whole new game, and that's fundamentally wrong, I think. I don't want us to lose players over this, and so the way we need to do it is slowly incorporate it one patch at a time. Start with texturing overhaul with shadows, then start texturing overhauling with like trees. Another great example is if you go to Kill Creek and you look in the bushes and the trees, it's a bunch of flat lines. Or if you go to that one map, Brushwood, or if you go to the other one, Dark Forest, look at the plant life around you. It is a flat 2D thing in a 3D space. That looks really stupid and out of place. And it's part of those graphics that make it seem like, wow, this feels dated to play. Another few things is that you don't have a lot of common features in games that you see nowadays. You don't have head bobbing, which I know that I just said this a minute ago, that the game is meant to be very crisp and fresh, but some people like that. It's stuff like that. And you wouldn't have to have the character's head physically bob. It can be a camera effect. These kind of things are things that people want to see. It's when you play the game and you get the feel that the game is old. Also, gun flashes on guns. Those graphics are also kind of bad. Also, when you look at jump mechanics, jumping is very, very weird feeling. You don't feel like you're jumping in real life, and that's the whole thing. Video games, first-person games especially, are meant to kind of exaggerate, is that you're supposed to play like you feel you would in real life, at least to some small degree. And it's little things like jumping, crouching, running that don't feel like you're doing it. It feels like you're controlling something, which is true. It's very hard to put into words, but I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about, where it's like you don't feel immersed. That's the word I'm looking for. You don't feel immersed. You just feel like you're doing a mundane task. It doesn't feel like, it feels like you're doing like sort of like a function. You're just doing this over and over because this is what it is. It's like that's what you're doing, where you don't feel immersed. You don't feel like it's a part of you. You don't feel like, oh, I need to do anything besides get my adrenaline up. It's kind of like getting your adrenaline up and yelling at a brick wall. You're not accomplishing anything. It's that sort of background, sort of subconscious feeling you get when you play the game. Go and play a game like Overwatch, for example, or go and play a game like Destiny, or even Call of Duty. Call of Duty is actually really great about that. Battlefield, the new one coming out, go play those, and not looking at the quality of the graphics, think about the way you play the game and how it feels when you're playing. It feels natural. Actually, Counter-Strike is another great example. The game feels and flows naturally in a way that Combat Arms does not, just by playing it. If you guys played Soldier Front 2 before it shut down, that game did a great job about it. In fact, currently, similar to Soldier Front 2, the Nexon's other game, Ghost in the Shell First Assault, also does a great job with that. Combat Arms does not. You guys will feel the difference when you play the game immediately. And these are the kind of things that make the game feel a little bit dated. It's the way you play the game's mechanics, and quite a bit of it is graphical overhaul. I will be very blunt with that. A lot of it is graphical overhaul, but you don't need to change the fundamental graphics in the game engine and make a whole new game to fix that. You can do that simply by changing some texturing effects and making things seem a little bit more realistic, creating a three-dimensional environment as opposed to something 2D that's pasted on a block. There's a couple different ways you can design worlds and maps when you're actually making them in a map generator, or like in something like 4D Cinema or something like Unity. You can do that a number of ways, and there's a couple of ways you can do it where you can say, like, I'm going to create a block and paste a skin on it, which is probably the easiest way, and it's the way Combat Arms was built. But you can also go ahead and say, okay, while we have that, we can also create three-dimensional objects with particle effects and things like that. Obviously, one of the beauties of Combat Arms, at least when it was first released, was that it could be played on almost anybody's computer. Obviously, being free to play, if someone doesn't have a lot of money to pay on games, they probably don't have a lot of money that they paid for their computer as well. So it's kind of a symbiotic relationship there where you have people who already can't afford very good computers. So that's also part of the reason they can't afford games. So you make a game that's easy to run on almost every computer, even if it's a really crappy computer, and they can still run it on their crappy computers because it's free to play, and they can afford it, obviously, because it's free. That's my point. So, but the thing is, that's not so much of an issue anymore. The basic game engine can run on even the crappiest computers by 10 miles nowadays. That's not, the issue's not there anymore. If you have a computer from any time in the past 2 years, it can probably run Combat Arms on 100 frames per second with no problem. You can have the crappiest computer, the crappiest Chromebook or whatever, and it will play this game with no problem. You can run it on an emulator through Mac, and you can probably play it just fine. You'll probably have no issues with it, but that means we can now sort of up the graphics a little bit here. We can make them a little better now. We don't have to stick to our 2007, 2008 standards, honestly, when they were probably developing this game in 2006. We don't need to stick to those anymore. We can have some graphical overhauls, and they can come slowly. They don't have to come all at once. Do like Shadows first, and then start doing Plant Life, and then start doing the way that like the train door on Kill Creek moves so it doesn't feel as mechanical and glitchy. It's little things like that that make the game feel old and dated, and that's kind of what I wanted to go over today, guys. There's a lot of other aspects of this, and honestly, I could talk about this for like 3 hours, but we don't have 3 hours. I have about 10 minutes, and I'm going to call this quits right here, guys. Thank you for watching. Please rate, comment, subscribe. Definitely share your ideas on what makes this game feel dated, or what we could do to make it feel less dated down below in the comments. I'd love to hear what you guys have, and I probably will do another commentary on something like this at some point. It seems to be a fairly hot topic these days with this game. With that, guys, cheers, and I will see you in the next video. Shadowlance out.
Round start.
Enemy down.
Round start.
Enemy down.
Round start.
Grenade.
Round start. Alpha Team wins.